time now, I've been grappling with the concept of what it means to be a parent. The hardships, the memories, the lessons. And while I currently don't have children myself, it's something I would like later on in my life. You see, with each new generation, there's a whole new set of problems that are unique for them. And while every generation thinks that they have it the worst, there are the situations that make up the typical human condition. Things everyone, regardless of age and background, eventually go through. But how do you teach someone to be prepared for that? All of this really started with a conversation that happened several years ago. I was talking to someone about the concept of having kids, and the topic eventually led to parenting. They talked about wanting to be the kind of parent that their kids could always come to them for absolutely anything. Which sounds great, but at the time I thought it wasn't realistic. I mean, we were all kids once. But it got me thinking about the type of parent I'd like to be, what values I want to pass down, but more importantly, what lessons I want to teach them, and how. This has been on my mind for a while now, and so I wanted to share a couple of the ways I plan on being there for my future kids. I think we all know children don't go to their parents for everything. We didn't do it as kids, and it'd be naive to think our kids would be any different. As much as we hate to admit it, everyone has something to hide. But it doesn't mean that we have to let them deal with it alone. For me, the hallmark of being a parent is making life easier for your kids. There's the more obvious answers, like being financially and emotionally supportive, but there's also the very real skill of preparation, giving them the opportunity to make the least amount of mistakes where they can afford them and letting them get ahead. And I think it makes sense. Science works the same way. One person discovers and records something, the next builds off of it. You do that for long enough, and eventually you get something that no one involved ever thought was possible. But it happened because someone had the foresight to document it. And I think parenting should be the same way. It technically is, but if you're my parents, then you don't do that great of a job of teaching that story. And if you're me, then you definitely aren't great at explaining things, which means figuring out a way how to share the lessons that doesn't end up like a bad school presentation. I've been super passionate about filmmaking for over a year now, and while I'm still very much in the learning phase, I think it's the medium for me. Okay. Honestly, the act of documenting things isn't foreign to anyone. We take pictures while on vacation or whenever we visit a nice restaurant. And while my camera roll is filled with lots of random stuff from across the months, none of it is really intentional. In fact, most of the time, I just shovel everything into a drive and forget about it. As I see it, there's gonna be a point where we look back and honestly wonder where all the time went. I, for one, would like to see the different seasons of my life in a more entertaining format. This idea to document my life is something I've wanted to do ever since I was 10 years old. Back when I was in elementary school, I used to watch a show called Good Luck Charlie, where the main character would make little video logs for baby sister about how the day went and the lessons she learned from it. I didn't know it at the time, but this was when I realized I wanted to do something similar. I just never acted on it. As kids, and even as young adults, we think that there couldn't be anything worthwhile to document about our lives because we hadn't lived it yet. And so, several years passed, and it wasn't until now in my mid-20s that I actually felt like I had lived enough to actually document on. But looking back, I kind of wish I took the leap anyways, whether that was in the form of a journal, an audio recording, or even what is now my very old JVC camcorder. Yeah. As a kid, I lived in the moment, and lately I've been trying to make sense of it all. But you know what they say. The second best time to start anything is now. So, I'm gonna try to vlog every month because I think that's the sweet spot for me in terms of managing the rest of my life, and try to teach the lessons that are most relevant to me in that moment. The thing that really set this idea in motion is this. Amongst my friends, I have a notoriously terrible memory, and I do joke about it. But when I think about how I'm going to teach my children all of the lessons I'm going through right now, there's a part of me that's not quite sure I'll even remember the stuff I'm dealing with. I don't have many memories of my childhood, and while I know I went through hardships and overcame them, I can't explain how I learned from them, or what it is I exactly learned. And looking back at the last few years, so many things happened to me that I experienced and grew from. Breakups, startups, losing friends and gaining some. I've transformed the most in the last few years, and I have no record of any of it happening. Not how I felt, not how I overcame it, and not what I learned from it. I always considered myself quite a selfish person, but for the first time in my life, I feel like this is bigger than me. To document my life, not for me, but for them. And not just the grand hero-style plots and adventures, which will happen, but even the mundane, everyday stuff that I deal with. Most of our life is routine, and just because it happens every day doesn't mean that there aren't any problems to solve or lessons to be learned. In fact, I think most of life is learned and lived there. So, with that being said, kids, welcome to season 1 of Your Dad's Life.